The studio was alive before the cameras even rolled, a buzzing hum of laughter and chatter as producers moved between rows of audience members holding applause signs. On the stage, Joy Behar flipped through her cue cards with the casual ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. She looked relaxed, sharp-eyed, waiting for her guest, one she knew would make for good television. "All right, folks," the stage manager said, holding up a hand. "We're live in 5, 4, 3. The signature The View jingle hit. The crowd erupted in applause, and Joy leaned forward, smiling into the camera. "Welcome back to The View. Our next guest is a Golden Globe-winning actor, a producer, a director, and, frankly, one of the funniest men in Hollywood. Please welcome Jason Bateman." The audience cheered as Jason walked out from the side of the set, smiling politely. His suit was neatly pressed, his hair perfectly in place, but there was always that glint in his eyes, the quiet, watchful one that made him look like he was perpetually assessing a room before speaking. He shook hands with Whoopi, gave Sonny Hostin a warm nod, then turned to Joy. She smirked at him, already knowing she had her first quip ready. "Jason Bateman, everyone," she said with mock drama. "You know, every time you come here, we all brace ourselves. You have that dry humor that makes us question whether you're joking or about to walk off." Jason chuckled, taking his seat. "Well, Joy, it's a fine line. Keeps things exciting." The audience laughed, and for a few minutes the mood was easy. They talked about Jason's latest project, a darkly comedic drama, and how he managed to direct and star in it simultaneously. He cracked a few jokes about overworking himself, and Joy responded with playful jabs about Hollywood types needing constant attention. It was friendly, fast, and funny, exactly how producers liked it. But then Joy leaned back, shuffling her cards, and said, "All right, let's talk about something real for a second. You've said before that the entertainment industry's gotten too serious, that people can't take a joke anymore. Don't you think maybe it's because too many of those jokes come from, well, privilege?" The tone in her voice was teasing, but Jason caught the barb. He smiled, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Privilege?" he repeated lightly. "I think humor's one of the few things that actually connects people, not divides them." Joy tilted her head. "Sure, but you've got to admit, a lot of what passes as funny these days punches down. People aren't laughing with you. They're the punchline." Jason's jaw flexed as he kept his voice even. "I think that depends on who's telling the joke and why. Comedy's not about punching down. It's about holding up a mirror. And sometimes people don't like what they see." The audience made a low, collective sound, half agreement, half anticipation. Joy smirked, sensing tension she could play with. "That's very poetic, Jason. But isn't that a convenient way to excuse offensive humor?" Jason leaned forward, his usual calm demeanor taking on a sharper edge. "I'm not excusing anything, Joy. I'm saying context matters. If you can't tell the difference between a comedian making a point and one being cruel, then maybe you're not listening. You're just waiting to be offended." The crowd reacted instantly, a mix of gasps and claps. Joy's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't back down. "Okay," she said, laughing tightly. "So you're saying it's the audience's fault for getting offended?" "I'm saying," Jason replied evenly, "that outrage has become entertainment. People watch to get angry now. It's a sport." "Come on," Joy said, waving a hand dismissively. "You can't blame the audience for caring about what's being said. We live in a world where words matter." "Of course they do," Jason countered, voice steady, eyes locked on hers. "But intent matters too. You can't have one without the other." Whoopi shifted slightly, glancing toward the camera crew. She could feel the heat building at the table. Sonny Hostin pursed her lips and said nothing. Soriness, practiced laugh that meant she was covering something. "Oh, honey, I've been around too long to The red light above the camera clicked off and the applause died instantly. The studio, moments ago humming with energy, now felt like a vacuum. Crew members moved quickly, whispering into headsets, rearranging mugs and cue cards on the desk, pretending everything was normal. But the air was thick. Jason Bateman leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the table in front of him. Joy Behar was still smiling, that careful. Polished smile she wore after every on-air skirmish, but her knuckles were white around her cue cards. Okay. People, the producer's voice came through the speakers above. We're back in 90 seconds. Reset energy. Big smiles. Whoopi Goldberg exhaled loudly and muttered under her breath. Lord, I knew this one was gonna go sideways. She reached for her tea, shooting a glance toward Jason. You good? Jason nodded, forcing a brief smile. Yeah, just didn't realize I was signing up for a cross-examination. Whoopi chuckled. Welcome to The View, baby. Everyone gets grilled eventually. Joy looked up at that, her tone deliberately light. Hey, Jason, don't take it so hard. You held your own. You should see what I do to politicians. Jason looked at her, the faintest smirk on his lips. Yeah, well, I'm not a politician, Joy. I actually try to answer questions. That stung. The corner of Joy's smile twitched. Cute, she said, pretending to laugh, but her voice was cool. You know, that dry humor thing works great on Netflix. Not so much when people think you're mad. I'm not mad, Jason said quietly, almost to himself. Just tired of pretending everything's a joke. Before she could respond, the producer called out, Back in 10. The audience began clapping again as the cameras powered up, the studio lights hitting full brightness. Whoopi straightened in her seat. Sarah Haynes and Sonny Hostin plastered on smiles, trying to keep the segment from spiraling further. Joy leaned toward the camera, her on-air grin returning. Welcome back to The View. We're here with the very talented Jason Bateman. Before the break, we were talking about his latest project, and let's just say things got a little lively. The audience chuckled some nervously. Jason forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Joy continued, Jason, your new movie dives into moral gray areas, people trying to do the right thing in the wrong way. Do you ever worry audiences just use that as an excuse? Like, hey, he did something bad, but he meant well? Jason straightened, his voice calm but firmer now. No, I think audiences are smarter than you're giving them credit for. People understand that good and bad aren't always black and white. That's life. Sure, Joy said quickly. But some of these characters, let's be honest, they're villains we're rooting for. Doesn't that say something about the culture? Jason leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on hers. It says people are hungry for honesty, for stories that don't sugarcoat life. Not everyone fits neatly into your definition of a villain. The tension was instant. The audience shifted, feeling the friction return. Joy let out a small laugh, masking her irritation. So you think people like darkness because it's honest? That's a little cynical, don't you think? Jason's voice stayed level, but there was a cold precision to his tone. No, I think pretending everything's fine is cynical. At least darkness doesn't lie to you. A few claps broke from the audience, followed by quiet murmurs. Whoopi glanced at the control booth as if to ask if they should cut early. But the producers, sensing viral gold, signaled to keep going. Joy tried again, her tone dipping from playful to pointed. Jason, you sound like you've got a chip on your shoulder. I'm just saying, Hollywood has a responsibility to put out things that make people better, not just make them think they're seeing the truth. Jason's expression barely changed, but his voice hardened. And who decides what makes people better, Joy? You? The network? That's not storytelling, Doc. That's propaganda. The crowd reacted audibly now. A few gasps, a few shouts of, ooh! Joy blinked, clearly not expecting the blowback. Okay, she said, holding up a hand. No need to get defensive. I'm not defensive, Jason said, his voice even but steely. You asked me to talk about my work, and then you told me what it should mean. Maybe the problem isn't the work. Maybe it's how people like you talk about it. Joy's eyes narrowed, the smile long gone. People like me? Yes.